Cancer-related fatigue didn't just drain my energy, it hollowed out my sense of self. It wasn't the kind of tiredness that sleep could fix. It was a deep, heavy exhaustion that lived in my bones, in my head, and in every attempt to simply get through the day. Even the smallest of tasks felt like climbing a mountain. Getting out of bed, showering, answering a message. Everything required much more effort than I felt I had. Over time, the fatigue began to change the way I thought about myself and about my life. The exhaustion fed anxiety. I worried that I'd never feel like myself again. Slowly, that anxiety blended into a dark, heavy depression. I lost interest in everything. I felt disabled and disconnected from the world and from the people who I loved. I felt like life had no meaning, and I doubted whether things would ever get better. I reached a point so low that I didn't even want to live anymore. That was the hardest part, pure and utter despair. However, somewhere in that darkness, there was a very small part of me that still wanted a life. This part wasn't loud, it wasn't strong, it was more like a whisper. In the beginning, motivation didn't come naturally. I had to almost manufacture it. Tiny goals, tiny steps. Some days the only win was getting showered and dressed or sitting outside for a few minutes. But each small thing was proof that I wasn't completely lost. Gradually, I started introducing exercise back into my life. Not the kind meant to bounce back or power through, but gentle movements, walking mainly. At first it felt pointless, but little by little, something started to shift. Exercise didn't cure my depression or erase the fatigue, but it helped me move through it. Here's what I learned about why it made such a difference. Firstly, movement triggers the release of endorphins, the body's natural mood-lifting chemicals. When depression had numbed me, those moments of relief mattered. Secondly, exercise helps rebuild energy regulation. Cancer-related fatigue creates a vicious cycle. Exhaustion leads to inactivity, which leads to more exhaustion. Movement disrupts that cycle. Physical activity reduces inflammation and improves circulation, both of which can be affected by cancer treatments. It gave me structure. Even 10 minutes a day became something predictable, something I could point to and say I did it. It restored a sense of control. When so much felt taken from me, choosing to move even a little was empowering. It reminded me I was still here, feeling my heartbeat, my muscles work, my breath deepen. It made me feel alive again. Over time, these tiny actions helped me to rediscover meaning, not in some dramatic, sudden realization, but in small renewals of purpose. I began reconnecting with things I cared about. I allowed myself to hope again. I found strength not by beating what happened to me, but by continuing inch by inch despite it. Today I look back at the darkest period of my life, not with shame, but with compassion. I survived something unimaginably heavy. I learned that even when life feels empty, meaning can be rebuilt. And I learned that progress often begins in the smallest possible moments. A breath, a step, a stretch, a choice, until those moments start forming a new direction. This is still my journey, but now I walk it with purpose and with understanding that even in the lowest moments, there is always a path forward. Sometimes quiet, sometimes slow, but always possible.